Hello and welcome back to another video. Because it's almost Christmas, I'm going to print some Christmas cards and I thought that I would talk through my printing process. Today I'm going to use a small sheet of lino carving tools, inks, a roller, a palette to roll out the ink, tracing paper and a pen and a pencil, a spoon and lastly some blank cards which I got from CassArt. I started off by tracing my design onto my block of lino. This block is cut from a large A4 sheet of lino. I also went over my design using a fine liner pen. This is optional because the design can be outlined in pencil to make it darker. I just prefer using a pen and I find it easier to see. I've actually already tried to film this video once, but I was having so many issues with the focus and the footage was completely unusable, so I've decided to film it again. The first time I carved the design on stamp rubber instead of lino, but I found it really difficult to get an exact circle because of how the stamp rubber moves while it's being carved. I decided to change to hard cut lino because I think it will hold the shape of the circle better. And I also don't have any more stamp rubber, so this was the next best option, but I think overall it will create a better print. I also traced around a glass to ensure that I had the perfect circle before starting to carve, and I did this in a thicker pen so that I could definitely see it, because I didn't want to waste my time carving a circle that didn't look good. I started carving using a medium U-gouge file lino carving tool to outline my design. I always get so many questions about my carving tools. So the tools that I use are file carving tools, and I have set C, which is a set of 6 tools. And it comes with a mix of U-gouge and V-gouge tools in different sizes, and I got mine from Jackson's Art Supplies and I would definitely recommend them, and I personally think that they're worth the price, and I use mine every single time I carve lino. I then went in with my largest U-gouge tool to remove large sections of the background lino. This is definitely one of my favourite parts, I find it so satisfying. Then I used the smallest tool to carve away the details of my design. I chose this tool because my block is fairly small and because I don't need a particularly deep cut into the lino. If I did need a deeper cut, I would use a small V-gouge tool. This design is something a little bit different for me. It's not super Christmassy, but I wanted to print a little winter scene, and I just wanted something subtle and kind of understated. I also decided to add a little moon and some stars in the sky just to fill out the print and give it a bit more balance. Then I made a really quick registration device to help me line up my print with the card that I'm going to print on. I just traced around the edges of the card and marked where the crease would be down the middle of the card. And then on the registration device on the left side, where the card would be placed, I traced around my lino block, ensuring that it would be in the centre of the card. The registration device will ensure that I manage to get my lino in the centre of my card every time I print. Then I rolled out my ink. I want to create a gradient of light blue going into dark blue. So I started with a line of Prussian blue ink and then added a small amount of opaque white to the end. And then I began rolling out the ink, mixing the colours together to create a simple gradient. I always use Cranfield Safe Wash Relief inks. They're my absolute favourite oil-based inks, and I love the print that they give every single time. Once the ink was rolled out to a tacky consistency, I rolled it onto my lino block, making sure to get a nice thick coat of ink. When I did this the first time with a stamp rubber, I used a smaller roller, and after I had printed the stamp a couple of times, the colours began to blend and they weren't as bright. So I would recommend using a larger roller that covers the whole of your block if you're doing a gradient print, so that the colours stay nice and crisp and they don't get muddied down. Then I placed my lino block onto my registration device, making sure that it was lined up correctly. Then I placed the card over the top, also lining it up with the registration device. Then I applied pressure using a metal teaspoon. This is my favourite way to apply pressure to my prints. But you can also use a wooden spoon, a barron, a roller, a printing press, or any other way that you prefer. I had to apply quite a lot of pressure over quite a long time because the cards that I'm using are quite thick and it took a while to get an even print. Then, once I was happy with how much pressure I had applied, I peeled away the card to reveal the finished print. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you found it useful.